If you've clicked on this video, chances are you're renting and you're wanting to own a home one day. You're tired of paying someone else's mortgage, following your landlord's rules, and feeling stuck. And I'll bet you have a family member or a close friend in the exact same position as you are. What if teaming up with someone you trust could make owning a home not just possible, but a reality? And that's the main reason for this video. Because together, you and a trusted partner can enter the real estate market sooner than you think. Forget renting forever or struggling to buy a loan. Homeownership today is tough, but there's a better way. In this video, I want to show you the power of co-buying, compare the overall costs of renting, share tips to protect yourself, and help you decide if it's the right choice for you. Because let's face it, no one is going to do it for you. It's up to you to take charge of your own future. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Richard. I'm a real estate agent in British Columbia, and I've been living mortgage-free since 2019 by the power of house hacking. This channel is all about Canadian real estate, and if you like that and you want to stay up to date, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. What is co-buying a home exactly? Co-buying a home means teaming up with someone else, whether it's a family member or a close friend or even a trusted partner, to purchase a property together. Essentially, you share the costs, the responsibilities, and the rewards of home ownership. But why consider co-buying? Well, with house prices in many Canadian cities outpacing incomes, it's becoming harder and harder to buy a property by yourself. Co-buying helps bridge that gap, allowing multiple people to combine their resources to enter the market sooner. And so what I want to do is show you a couple examples so you get a better idea of what I'm talking about. So you might have a family arrangement where you and your parents pool your savings together to buy a property with separate suites. Your parents would live downstairs in the suite and you take the main floor, not only sharing the mortgage, but you're also going to be building equity together. Or you could buy a property with one of your close friends or coworkers. And so say you buy a townhome. You split the down payment, the monthly mortgage, the property taxes, while each having your own floor or own room in the house. These are just two of many examples. While it sounds great on paper, it's not without its own complexities, like managing shared responsibilities or navigating the financial disagreements. Don't worry, we'll cover all of that later. Now that we know what co-buying is, let's break it down with real numbers. You'll see exactly how it compares to renting and why it might be more affordable than you think. To give you a clear picture, I'm going to be showing you a cost comparison over the 5, 10, and 15-year mark to see which decision is going to be more affordable in the long run. Also, if you want to follow along with your own example, just pause this video right now, go grab a pen and paper, and come right back. In most cases, renting is simpler. You're paying monthly for a place to live without worrying about property maintenance or long-term commitment. But first off, we need to figure out the total unrecoverable costs of renting. Basically, it's money you're never going to see again by renting. By doing this, we'll know exactly how much it's costing you after 5, 10, and 15 years. Right now, the average monthly rent in Canada for a one-bedroom apartment is around $1,800, and for a two-bedroom, it's closer to $2,300. So in this example, I'm going to be using the $2,300 and assume that family A has a kid and needs a two-bedroom unit. Now, if they were in the same unit over the next 5, 10, 15 years, factoring in rent increases each year, what would it cost them? The other question that we also need answered is, what's the average annual rent increase? Well, when I do a quick Google search, it states that the rental increase has been 4.9% over the last 5 years, which it has been a little hectic. So to be fair, let's say over the next 15 years, we can expect a 3% increase each year. As you can see here, in 5 years, it's going to cost you just over $146,000. 10 years, it's going to cost you just over $316,000. Then in 15 years, it's going to be just over $513,000. And this is not factoring in that you might be moving to a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom house because your family is growing, which would translate to an even higher unrecoverable cost over the years. But for the sake of trying to keep everything even, family A will be living in the same apartment over the 5, 10, and 15-year mark. Now, another factor to consider is if family A had invested any excess money into stocks or investments and got some sort of return. This is hard to properly account for because there are many variables. Let's just say they had $20,000 into an investment and didn't add anything to it over the 15 years. As for the expected annual return, the S&P 500 is the golden standard, and it has received an average of 10% over the last 30 years. So we'll use that number as an average return. So on that initial 20 grand, after 5 years, you're gonna have a total profit of $12,210. And then in 10 years, you're gonna have a profit of $31,874. And lastly, over 15 years, you're gonna have a profit of $63,544. So now we're going to figure out the total unrecoverable costs of renting when you factor in any investments that you're getting. And so the equation on this is simply going to be the amount of rent that you're paying over the time frame minus the amount of money that you made off of your investments, which is going to equal the total unrecoverable costs that comes from renting. So in this scenario, after 5 years, the total unrecoverable cost is going to be just over $134,000. In 10 years, it's going to be $284,000. And in 15 years, it would have costed you $449,784 to rent for those years. Now, if you don't have any type of investments, or maybe you're putting more money away each year towards your investment, what I'm trying to say here is there's lots of variables. So adjust these numbers as necessary to match your situation. Another big factor that is also really hard to figure out is the tax amount on the money that you made with your investments. Majority of you will be in different tax brackets due to your overall income. So just keep that in mind because the actual profits will be less once you factor in the taxes. Now let's talk about co-buying. First, we need to know the average cost of a home in Canada. Right now, the benchmark price is just over $700,000 according to Canadian Real Estate Association. Though where I'm at in British Columbia, it's closer to $800,000 for a home that could accommodate 2 small families. So we're going to be using that number instead. Using the same $20,000 that you would have initially invested with renting, we'll be using that amount as a down payment, meaning collectively between family B and family C, you'd have a $40,000 down payment, which would result in you both needing a $760,000 mortgage. Plugging those numbers into an online mortgage calculator with today's rates, it'll bring your monthly mortgage payment to $3,832 a month. Now what we need to do is figure out the remaining costs that are associated to owning a home. Most common are going to be property taxes, annual maintenance or just upkeep, insurance, mortgage, which is comprised of both principal and interest, and then utilities. In this example, property taxes are going to be $3,750. The annual maintenance is going to be $8,000, and typically it's about 1% of the overall value of the home is how we figured it out. Insurance is going to be $2,500. Mortgage is going to be interest only. So what you're going to need to do is go to the mortgage calculator. It'll have a breakdown of the interest paid for each year. And then lastly, we have utilities, which is going to be water, gas, and electricity. It's going to be $3,000 a year. Keeping with the theme of rental increases each year, we'll also have an annual increase of 3% for each of these expenses. When we factor all those expenses together, in 5 years, that house is going to cost you $255,455. In 10 years, it's going to cost you $507,974. And then after 15 years, that house is going to cost you $755,513. We've all seen house values increase year over year, so we're going to need to factor that in as well. After a quick Google search, what I found is over the last 30 years, houses have increased 1.8% year over year. So that's the number we'll be using for this scenario. After 5 years, that house has gone up $74,639. In 10 years, it's gone up $156,241. And then again, 15 years, it's gone up $245,458. And what I will say, which I'm sure most of you are thinking, is that it's not really realistic for 2 growing families to stay together in the same house over 15 years, as they would just outgrow it by then. But for this example, like renting in the same place for the entire time, we're going to keep it the same. So to figure this all out, it's going to be the total cost of owning minus the appreciation, which is going to equal the total unrecoverable costs. In 5 years, it's going to be just over $180,000. When again, you divide it by 2 because there's 2 families, it's going to be just over $90,000. In 10 years, it's going to be $351,000, which translates into each person paying $175,000. And then 15 years, it's going to cost both of you $510,000, which each person will be on the hook for $255,000. Now that we have both the total unrecoverable cost of renting and the total recoverable cost of owning, we need to figure out how much money you're going to be saving by co-owning. As you can see at the 5-year mark, it's going to be just about $44,000. 10 years is just over $108,000. And then the 15-year mark, you're going to be saving close to $200,000. And keep in mind, this is just one example that shows how co-buying can save you a significant amount of money, and that there are many more scenarios where buying together can be beneficial. After seeing this data, you might still be wondering, should I consider co-buying? And don't worry, I'm going to get into that shortly here. But something to make clear again is there are many other factors to consider, and everyone's situation is vastly different. So definitely don't take these calculations and directly apply them to your situation. I'm confident it's going to be different. And if you want someone to help you figure this out, to exactly see if co-buying does make sense for your situation, you can text me at this number right here, or go down to the description and book a call with me, where my team and I would be happy to help or at least just point you in the right direction. So if that's you, click the link below. Like anything you do in life, there are pros and there are cons. Here's a list that comes to mind for me. Pros for renting would be the flexibility. You can move relatively short notice. Or the simplicity, right? There's going to be no maintenance responsibilities or long-term financial commitments. Some of the cons about renting are just you got no equity. Your payments are just only benefiting the landlord. Another con is increasing costs. Rental prices are rising in most Canadian cities, leaving you with less money in your pocket each year. And a pro for me for co-buying is these shared costs. You're splitting expenses like the down payment, monthly mortgage, taxes, utilities, really making owning a home more affordable. You're investing in a property rather than spending it on rent. I like to call it just a forced savings account. And then there's stability. Owning often provides a stronger sense of just security, but there are some cons to co-buying, right? We have shared risks. If one party can't pay their share, it really affects everyone. And then we have the relationship strain, which I'm sure lots of you were thinking of. It's just that the financial and the household decisions can cause tension. Couple last points before we dive into who should consider co-buying is let's talk quickly about some critical things to plan for. One of the biggest ones is the co-ownership agreement. A well-drafted agreement isn't just some paperwork. It's your playbook. It spells out your financial contributions, day-to-day responsibilities, what happens if one person needs to sell. For me, think of it as a rule book that keeps everyone on the same page. And then we have the financial health check, right? Before jumping in, ensure all parties are financially stable. A poor credit score or inconsistent income from one person can complicate finances down the road. Then we have budget planning. It's not just about splitting the mortgage. Plan for property taxes, insurance, utilities, unexpected costs. A shared budget prevents surprises and resentment later on. Then we have your future goals. Are they aligned? Discuss long-term plans up front. Is this a forever home or just a stepping stone? What is the timeline for selling or upgrading? Aligning on goals just avoids conflict down the road. And then do you have a clear exit strategy? Because life is unpredictable, so you need to have a clear plan in place for buyouts, selling, or refinancing if some circumstances change. This avoids tension and just the overall financial strain. And so this may seem like a lot, but my advice before you sign anything, sit down with a trusted lawyer or financial advisor. They'll help you cover your bases, avoid potential risks, and set you up for a smoother co-buying experience. But before you go through all of this, you need to ask yourself, should I consider co-buying? Now, I know it's not for everyone, but it is perfect for some. What I would look for is a family member or a friend that you trust and they have shared aligned goals. Look for those who are just ready to invest but just can't afford a home on their own, or people who are just looking for creative ways to enter the market without sacrificing that stability. If co-buying still isn't for you, or you'd rather know the full breakdown of renting versus buying on your own, click this video here. I'll walk you through these steps and even show you a super simple calculation to help make your decision easy. And while you check that out, I'm gonna go fly some drones.